I know.
Yes, good morning.
Yeah, morning.
My name is Zita Barnwell. I'm an attorney at law, and I am assisting a young woman, 11 years old, who was arrested and charged for the death of another young person. What has happened here in the entire thing of her arrest and trying to find a place for her to stay, we had an issue, which is still like an issue, given the fact that based on the laws of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, you have to find an appropriate place for someone who's considered juvenile or minor to stay. Right now, well, the approval that was given just this morning is the Belle Isle prison, wing of the Belle Isle prison. It's still a prison. She's not supposed to be staying at a prison. The young man, however, would be staying at the Liberty Lodge institution, or Liberty Lodge school. What my issues are is that has been here with these two young people is a failure of the state, given the fact that both of these young people seem to have been, well, not seem to have been, but are no strangers to the state authorities. And it's unfortunate at this point in time when the states come into play to assist is when these four young people are now arrested for an offense.
Do you mind saying what is the offense?
Well,
Is it murder that they're charged?
Yes, they're charged with murder. It's a very serious issue here, a charge with murder. As I said, up to yesterday, we're trying to ascertain where this child would stay, the young lady that is. She has been sitting since her arrest on a chair at the barracks for more than 72 hours. And the point that was made is whether or not, if Belle Isle was not approved, which is approved as a temporary juvenile center for her, where was she going to stay? Because she couldn't, as a matter of fact, the prosecutor was saying that she was going to go back to the barracks to sit on that chair. I mean, when you go into barracks upstairs before you enter CID, there's a chair there, yes. You sit there for more than 72 hours. The only time you get to move from there is if you want to go to the bathroom. Right just behind you is a prison cell where young men usually are brought in, replace stench of urine, and that's where she has been for more than 48 hours, 72 hours up until this morning. So I really could not understand why it is that they would think putting her back there was an option. But luckily, just before the court had given an adjournment or stood down the matter for 2 o'clock for them to sort it out. But just before we were going to leave on that first hearing, we were called back to say that there was word that Belle Isle was approved.
I understand that there's a male minor also.
Yes, he's 15.
And they're jointly charged with this offense.
That's right.
And this relates to the death of a 13-year-old boy, Matthew Da Souza,
That's
who
right.
police said, well, based on the autopsy findings, was struck in the head and drowned. Those are the findings of the autopsy.
Those were well, I don't
That's
have
what
that
the
right.
police said.
Right, I don't have that report before me, the autopsy report or anything just yet. And given the nature of the offense, given also that they're minors, Mr. Connell has agreed to work amicus. Both of us are working as pro bono on this matter.
Which means that you're not being paid.
We're not being paid. We're doing in the interest of justice, given the fact of the age of these children, and that they are people who don't have money to pay, and they deserve to have their justice as well.
But there are other social issues involved, because I understand that these children had been living on the streets, or at least not living with their parents for some
Well, I
time.
don't have any instruction they will live on the street. What I do know is that the young lady has been living with her grandmother, and the young man has been taken care of by an aunt.
So when is the next hearing in this case?
The next hearing will be next Monday at the family court. This matter was heard today at the serious offences court because the family court is not sitting. But when you have matters dealing with juveniles, the family court is the jurisdiction for them to be heard. Unless that court is not sitting, then a vice president, which is a senior magistrate, will hear the matter.
So what happens at the family court? Is it for the setting of a preliminary hearing?
Yes, there is. And we have already indicated to the prosecutor that will be seeking a paper committal. That would be the speediest way to get this matter.
And just explain briefly what a paper committal
Paper
is.
committal simply means that you would not have, well, let me back up a little bit. We used to have what is called, still do what is called a preliminary inquiry. It's really a pre-trial of the matters to see whether or not the magistrate can make a determination whether there's a prima facie case, enough evidence for the matter to be heard at the High Court. So that takes a while because half the time, even though they've been arrested and charged, the prosecutors say they're not ready because they're still gathering evidence, which should not be. But anyway, that's how things go. So on Monday, when we go to the hearing, we're going to make that indication to the court that we want a paper committal, which is you're given full disclosure of all the evidence that you have given in terms of witnesses and whatever the police have in the investigation. And it simply means that's like a shortcut. We look through to look for any evidence issues or whatever the case may be. And then after that has been done, the matter is sent to the High Court. So it's really a much shorter time. The only time you're going to have a delay is the fact that we are waiting for the disclosure. So if it is that the papers are ready on Monday, if it is the papers are ready on Friday, we can set a date for paper committal, which means that this matter should be over to the High Court before the end of this year or by January.
Has the court made any orders about the children's welfare, especially their education, to ensure that they continue their education while they are in custody?
The court didn't make that order here, but when we go to family court on Monday, we're going to ensure that those things are there. We won't take it for granted. I've actually indicated to that, made those indications to the magistrate that my concern with the young lady being held at Belial is her education, the fact that she would need some psychosocial counseling, and any other thing being so far away from family to visit. Her family lives closer to Kingston, I believe, than it is to Leeward. The young man might be in a better position because he's going to Liberty Lodge, and so will not be far from family for visits.
The government passed a few years ago a
Child Justice
bill
into act.
Can you give me a summary of that bill and how it would affect these two minors?
Well, I think it's not enforced, so that's the first thing. It has not been proclaimed, it doesn't have any teeth, it can't be used.
So it's not a law?
No. Well, it's law. It's passed
in an act of parliament.
Yes,
but
it's passed in an act of parliament, but it's nothing that we can use. It just sits there, right? I think one of the major things, and maybe society will probably respond differently on this, but if that was enforced, the first thing is that the 12-year-old could not be charged. In that piece of legislation, a child is not criminally liable if he or she's under 12 years old. Now our law says 8 years old. So anyone who has committed an offense, once you're 8 years old and older, you can stand trial for that. The other thing that would have happened in terms of, there's a diversion program. So part of the act is set up to try to, it's part of like a rehabilitative process or restorative justice kind of process. And if I recall, so when there was certain offenses being committed, that the members who have been wronged would meet those who are the offenders, people from the community, to try to mend that issue when it comes to the child. So it's an act in a way that helps to bring the community and families together to try to rehabilitate children who have come in conflict with the law.
I think it's important to also state that you are the president of the SOG Bar Association.
Yes, I am the president of the Bar Association.
I just want to say that for the benefit of the viewers. Thank you very much, Councillor Barnum.
You're very welcome, Kenton.
My name is still Grant Connell, and I'm appearing amicus on behalf of the young man in this matter.
What can you tell us about this case? How did you become involved in this? How did you hear about this case?
Well, the good president of the bar sent out a message to lawyers in the criminal bar, and there was a voice of silence. The silence is deafening. This whole issue of justice is really something I'm starting to smile about, because when lawyers are called to the bar, in the last 15 years I've gone to at least 25 calls, and in every other paragraph you hear the word justice. So happy to become a lawyer, play my role, and justice this and justice that. And then when matters of this nature come before the court, and you call on the vanguards to step forward, there's silence. So I guess it's another request from the president, and that's why I'm here.
Councillor Connell, often the public is rather emotional when it comes to these issues. Why is it important to you as a lawyer that justice is served? And as part of answering that question, what exactly is justice in a matter like this?
Well, we don't really exist in the wild, wild west. We have the law, and we have to apply it. And I often say, as I told my learned friend some days ago, that the police station is the accident and emergency of justice. You attract the legal injury there, sometimes you can't cure it. In this case, I know they were unrepresented, and that's another problem we have to address. Capital offenses, you assign a lawyer in the High Court. When you get there, But in the journey, that's where several legal injuries occur. And by the time you get to the High Court, they're almost impossible to cure, you see. By the time a lawyer got there, the police have already swarmed in and got certain things in statements and interviews. I know one of the children were there for over 48 hours, the conditions. So there are several things to be addressed, but when it's so difficult to get a lawyer to assist in situations like this, you know, it says a lot. But hopefully the conscience of the prosecution would be would grow over the weekend. And the point I raised about paper committal and the prosecution being ready when they come to court to entertain an application for paper committal, they'll see the importance now. Or if they want to leave the 11-year-old girl down at the prison for the next 6 months, or the young man at Boys Liberty Lodge for the next 6 months or 1 year before they decide to complete the preliminary inquiry.
I don't know if it's you, but I know lawyers had expressed concern about if not the physical situation, the circumstances at Liberty Lodge Boys Training Center. Are you concerned about the well-being of your client being there? Security and...
Every issue. There are certain issues that have been raised by the boys at the Boys Liberty Lodge that has caused concern. I've contacted a few people. And, you know, this case itself highlights several issues that the powers that be have to give priority to, and hopefully they address it. I keep on saying the court cannot fix these problems. Cannot, it's impossible. So I will function at my junction, and hopefully the prosecutor and the very learned DPP will do her part and her team. I look forward to it.
What do you think that should be?
What's that? Justice delayed.
Their part.
Justice delayed is justice denied. If you want to take a couple of years for a matter to complete, it's up to them. My conscience is clear.
We had a similar case, and I probably should have asked Council Barnwell this, a few years ago where a 12-year-old was either convicted or pleaded guilty to murder or manslaughter. Are you familiar with that case?
No, I'm not. And you should have, and she's right here, so you can ask her.
Council Barnwell, were you involved in that case?
I was not involved in that matter, but I do recall that matter. And if my memory serves me correct, one of the things that the lawyers and the court fought with is that in our laws, there's something about a child not, going to jail. And because I wasn't involved, I really can't tell you all of it, but we got cross that in law and the arguments where the judge at that time determined that yes, she should serve the time. And I believe she was housed at the prisons in Kingstown, what was the female, female. But one of the things that the law says, the law says if you're juvenile, you're not supposed to be in the same space with any adult inmate. And I think that is why they were having a bit difficulty finding a space for the 11-year-old. And even if she's going to be housed on the female wing at the prisons, at the Belle Isle prisons, yes, they have to ensure that there is no intermingling with the adult females and the minor child in that setting. Also, as I've said before, it is still a prison, and it shouldn't be at a prison. If I may say too, there's some early explorations. Colonel raised something which is really important about the injuries that may happen even before you get to court.
When you say injuries, do you mean cuts and bruises?
Legal injuries. It may mean anything. It may mean that people cautioned. It may mean that certain things you shouldn't say. That one of the things I always say to people who get arrested, and this is not saying that they are innocent until proven guilty. Legal advice is very important. When you're arrested, one of the things you try to get a lawyer, even if you can't afford. There are lots of lawyers like myself and Grant Cornell who would at least go through an electronic interview with the person, and that's important. There are always all kind of allegations of how people give evidence in court, and so you want to make sure you safeguard, even for the police own safety, that those kind of allegations of how they get these admissions or get any kind of information that, right, you don't have those kind of arguments later on in court because a lawyer was present. And one of the things that we are considering at the bar, at least at the criminal bar, is to be able to continue providing not only at the high court level, or even what we have done here, but to set up almost like a hotline or to give some numbers. Like if you are arrested, say that you can get a lawyer, and the police would at least oblige by saying, here, a list of lawyers, we can call one of them for you. I mean, I don't think the list will be a long list because, because there are about 12 persons who really practice at the criminal bar. There are not a lot of lawyers choose to practice at the civil bar. So that's why I'm saying that the list will be short. Yeah, unless there are other persons who are willing who work at the civil bar to provide that assistance.
So the list would have at least 2 names on there.
Well, at least 2 names.
But the police are extremely happy when no lawyers show up, because when you do the interview, it's like a catch-22. It's almost unconstitutional as far as I'm concerned. You tell the individual, look, you have the right to remain silent, but if you don't remain silent and you don't say something now that you say in court, they may think you're lying. So you go to court, more or less a lie if you change your story. You see? And if you say, do you need a lawyer? Yes, I need one, but I can't afford one. Mm-hmm. So, well, we'll call a JP.
A JP is a lawyer.
Justice of peace is a justice of police. It's an extension of the police as far as I'm concerned. Because the justice of peace comes there, he sits down like, he doesn't ask anything. He just sits there. This is justice of peace, Tom Jones. Shakes his head. He doesn't ask the prisoner, have the police beaten you? Have you eaten? Is your mother alive? Do you want to call her? Have you been given a phone call? They don't ask. So the JPs themselves need to be trained, not just to sign letters and applications for birth certificate and death certificate, etc., etc. When you're dealing with matters at the police station, this is where one of the biggest legal injuries occur. When justice of peace comes and the police say, well, we can't get a lawyer, so we got a justice of peace, so he'll protect your rights. Again, he's silent. So what are you protecting? So these many issues, but now we have the president of the bar, sure, she's strapped with all these things and she will address them. So I look forward to it.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Connell and Councillor Barnwell.
Okay, Quentin.
I know.
Good morning.
Yeah, morning.